Hey guys, I was contemplating a little bit about the idea of subjective morality and where does some of our ideals come from that most humans share in common, ideas about moral values that are common to the vast majority of Homo sapiens. Theists would tend to say that it's the Holy Spirit or God directing us from in our hearts or something, but not that I even really think that there is necessarily a objective morality, but rather I call it biological empathy. And by that I mean an impulse which humans have. I'm not sure about any other primates or any other animals, but I'm sure that all humans have this. And I'll give you an example. When you go to a horror movie and you see a serial killer gut somebody with, I don't know, with like a butcher's knife, and he pulls out all his intestines, a lot of people will feel grossed out. Now, what is the source of this feeling of being grossed out by this? Why can't you just disconnect yourself from what's going on and not feel anything? Well, I think that the reason for this is that if you ever felt pain similar to being bruised or cut, then when you see such a thing in a movie, your brain can amplify the amount of pain that you experienced, and it can give you a rough estimate of how much that particular thing is painful. So even if you see somebody else going through that thing, your brain instinctively thinks about how painful that must be to him. And subconsciously you get a bad feeling, because when your brain is doing this calculation, it gives you an idea, or you're thinking about this type of pain, and it gives you a bad connotation and a general bad subconscious feeling. Now, when you, for example, see somebody, this is only for males though, sorry girls, when you see somebody being kicked in the balls, if you were never kicked in the balls before in your life, if you never suffered from a painful ball sack, then you would not really know how to relate to what he's going through. But since you probably did, then if you see somebody getting kicked in the balls, you go, oh, like you can't even really control that reaction. Now, why can't you control that reaction? I believe that it has to do with the fact that when your brain is actually making this estimate or calculation, it causes you to empathize with that pain, to psychologically experience that pain or imagine as if you are going through that same pain, even if just for the purpose of estimating how painful it is. Now, that is the reason why men can't possibly understand labor pain, and why women can't understand being kicked in the balls. So, in my opinion, in order for empathy to work, you need to have experienced, to some degree, something very similar to this. Now, how does all this relate to subjective morality? Well, like I said, this reaction is due to a subconscious bad feeling that you get. You feel almost as if you are in pain, but not really in pain, but you have a mental image of that pain. And you are trying to avoid it instinctively, obviously. So, let's just say that our ancestors were discovering fire for the first time. Now, obviously, if you've never seen fire before and never felt fire before, you would maybe try to perhaps put your hand on the fire and try to feel what it feels like. And you get burned, and it hurts. You remember that pain of being burnt. So let's say there's a forest fire now, and there are several individuals who have experienced the pain of being burnt before, and several individuals that have not. The ones who have felt what fire feels like would try to avoid it, while those who didn't would not try to avoid it and might be burned to death. And therefore, the chances for survival are higher in those who have a stronger sense of empathy, because their sense of danger is stronger. They know how to avoid danger because they imagine the pain of what that particular dangerous thing might feel like. I know there's a lot of factors involved here besides this, but I'm getting to where this relates to objective morality. Now, when you receive, for example, a gift, it makes you feel happy. When you receive a warm hug from somebody you like, it makes you feel nice. And when you see somebody else getting it, since you have experienced it before, then you can empathize with the good feeling that they're having. It's as if you're sharing that experience to a certain degree, even if just to estimate how happy that person might be. And all this is being done subconsciously. So, if you are about to harm a person, to punch somebody, to steal from somebody, to cause somebody harm, because you can empathize with what that person is going through, then you can relate to that. When you steal from somebody, you subconsciously might even imagine if the same thing would be happening to you. So let's say you feel like stabbing somebody. You would try to avoid it because thinking about doing it makes you understand the pain that that person might go through, and then you subconsciously apply that pain to yourself, and then you try to avoid it. And that is, I think, the source for the feeling of guilt. And when you give somebody something, or you do a good deed or help somebody out, and they're thankful, you understand how you helped them out, and if you were in his shoes, then your empathy lets you get a good feeling, like it gives you a certain high from having a good feeling, because you can relate to his experience. And this, I think, is the source of generosity. These are all selfish things, though. That's the either problem with it, or I don't know if it's really a problem. That's just how we're hardwired. But yeah, I think that pretty much every thing that you would call moral or immoral is based on factors that are selfish and revolve around your own experiences. So yes, every individual who has gone through various things in his life gains experience and knows how those types of experiences feel like. And because of that, you can get a general idea of what somebody else is going through. And this empathy is what I think the source for objective morality is. So I don't really think that there has to be anything about spirituality or God involved, or any deities or holy spirits and so on. Actually, it doesn't even really make sense that a Holy Spirit would try to do things in such an indirect way. I mean, why would the Holy Spirit make you react a certain way when you see somebody get kicked in the balls?